Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. So today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Chinese EU trade war that's happening, especially with the EV cars at the moment. So as you know, the EU has placed some trade sanctions or tariffs against Chinese EV cars. And this was very recent, a couple of weeks ago. And China has basically asked them to revise these tariffs. Otherwise, it's going to be a full-blown trade war. I mean, China at the moment has not done anything in retaliation just yet, but they're giving the EU a chance to kind of roll back its tariffs. But China is kind of doing some investigations into French brandy and a few other things as well. So here's my take on this, guys. I mean, the EU has had easy access to the Chinese market for over 40 years now. For 40 years, the EU have been selling cars in China, especially German cars. Companies like Volkswagen have been making an absolute killing in China. They've been selling cars with no restrictions, no tariffs from Chinese, no nothing. And the only thing that China wanted in return was kind of have a joint venture where they can kind of transfer technology and they can kind of build cars kind of together, basically, with the Chinese workforce and European technology. So it's a win-win situation. The Europeans sell cars to China in its huge market of 1.4 billion people, and China in return gets a shared technology, or especially from kind of Western cars, because at that time China didn't really have much of a car market, and they were very much reliant on Western technology, especially cars. So it's a win-win situation. There was no tariffs, no nothing like that. So the Europeans have had kind of countless access to the Chinese market. They've had factories in China building cheap cars, and they've been sending these cars around the world, making profit. Companies like Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes have been making an absolute killing in China recently. So what's changed? So obviously the EV car revolution has changed China's car industry completely. Now you have, these local brands like BYD, Geely, even Huawei is kind of getting their act into it as well. And you have so many like local EV brands who are actually taking over the Chinese industry. And China has got a huge infrastructure when it comes to EV cars. They got charging stations almost every mile, and because I've been to China, guys, and the infrastructure is through the roof, especially with charging points and infrastructure and stuff. So there's no like stress driving an EV car in China. You know that there's a charging point around the corner, and it works, because if you drive around with EV car in UK, for example, you're always stressed out to see if there's a charging point near you somewhere. If you're going far along the motorway, sometimes I stop in service stations, and these charging points are either used by the cars or they don't work. They've been vandalized, because these EV chargers, they cost a lot of money, especially they've got a lot of copper inside. So what a lot of vandals do, they cut the wire and they take the wire. And so a lot of UK charging points are vandalized or not working, or they're already being used by the EV cars. So it's very stressful driving an EV car in London, but in China it's not. So the infrastructure in China is there, and there's some amazing cars out in China. I mean, like BYD is absolutely killing it, and Geely and many other car brands are absolutely killing it. There's XPeng as well, NIO, there's many others. And even Xi Jinping, when he kind of met Biden at one point, and Xi Jinping was driving this amazing kind of bulletproof local Chinese car. I can't remember what the name is now, But even Biden was impressed. He was like, "Wow, what the hell is this?" And Biden went in the car and he was checking it out, and he was absolutely impressed. Even Gavin Newsom went to China, and Gavin Newsom is the governor of California. He even went to China, and he was driving around with an EV car, and he was absolutely impressed by it. So Chinese EV cars are amazing, but not only that, they are saving the planet in terms of, it's not gasoline cars or diesel cars, which are releasing emissions out in the air. These are clean cars. And this was EU's policy back in the day, like 10 years ago. They were blaming China, saying China is the biggest polluter in the world, blah, blah, blah. China, it's because of China we're having climate change. China needs to do more. And now China's creating these EV cars and helping the environment and stuff. Now, what did the EU do? Instead of like rolling out EV cars, which is good for the environment, is also part of the EU's manifesto and EU's kind of climate change push, which they're pushing, people to go into EV cars and stuff like that. This is one of EU's policies. But no, they don't want that. Rather than have a clean environment, they'd rather put tariffs on Chinese cars. Because at the end of the day, it's never about the environment. It was never about climate change. It's all about EU having advantage. And as soon as China gets an advantage, they don't allow it. They just don't allow it. So this is like a slap in the face, to be honest. I mean, basically, this is the same as, if you have a friend coming for dinner, for example. So if you have a friend, he comes to dinner for like 10 years. You feed him every single day. You go for shopping. You feed him every single day. He comes to your house for dinner. Because he doesn't have any money, you don't ask for anything back because, he doesn't have any money. He's poor. Suddenly this friend makes a bit of money. He's got a good job and now he's earning a lot of money. And guess what? He never invites you around his house or never takes you out for dinner. So this is what it's like, it's just a slap in the face. You do favors for the EU and the EU just slaps your face as soon as you need a favor back. So it's all kind of van der Leyen's fault, to be honest. I mean, you got this lady. She's an agent for United States. She's a Trojan horse. She's destroying Europe for the sake of America. All the foreign policies of Europe is now basically following American foreign policies. So she's an agent for United States, doing their bidding basically. And the rest of the Europeans are falling for it like idiots. So what's this going to cause? I mean, it's already causing a major issue, especially to companies like Volkswagen. You can see here, Volkswagen is closing down factories in Germany, like 3 major factories. They are losing many jobs. And Volkswagen is around $200 billion in debt. $200 billion is the biggest debtor in the whole world. There is no way they can pay that money back. No way, impossible. I mean, their sales are going down, not going up. They are falling behind the EV industry, so there is no way they can pay that 200 billion back. So I think Volkswagen is going to be in some deep trouble, and the only way they can survive is if the German government, comes in to help them. But the German government, they are economically in a recession. They cannot afford to help Volkswagen and all these private companies. They just can't do it. I mean, you can thank the Germans for that, for blowing up the allowing US to blow up the Nord Stream and destroying their own economy just to please Biden. So you can thank the Germans for that. But yeah, Volkswagen is not going to do well. So if these EU tariffs go ahead and looks like they are, then I think there's going to be EU's going to be in some major trouble, because end of the day, the EU doesn't have any EV factories in the EU. They don't have any battery plants or or even like for raw materials, because to make batteries you need raw materials, right? You need like lithium, sodium, cobalt, and many others. And China has access to 90% of the mines around the world. The excuse me, the EU does not. So the EU is going to be really falling behind. So they're going to be wanting these raw materials from China. China's not going to give it, um, and and China's definitely not going to be helping European brands who want to get their foot in the door in China. So I think China's going to be a lot more tougher there. And these stories are spreading around to the rest of the Chinese community in China. And this is why Chinese are not buying European cars anymore. Because at the end of the day, it's all about pride, right? You basically, you Europeans basically think you're bigger than and better than everyone else, especially the Chinese. And the Chinese have allowed you to sell your cars in China. And suddenly you don't allow the Chinese cars to be sold in Europe. So the people in China are not stupid. They will read the news. They will know what's happening, and they will not buy Chinese. No, sorry. You know, German cars in China. And already you can see Volkswagen sales are plummeting in China, absolutely plummeting. And you can see Volkswagen profit plunges 64% as China sales slide. So the people in China are speaking with their wallets. China is not going to help these European companies to get a foothold in China like they used to. So end of the day, who's going to lose? I think Europe is going to lose. End of the day, I mean, Europe is already in recession. You know, Germany is in recession. Britain is not part of Europe, but Britain is absolutely in recession. France is in recession. Italy is in recession. Europe is going down, guys. The European Union is going to fall apart over the next 5 years, and it's just down to their own. I don't want to be too harsh to them, but this is all down to their own stupidity, guys. This is all down to their own ridiculous policies. And guess what? Trump is coming back to power by the looks of it. And when Trump comes back to power, he said clearly not only are the Chinese taking advantage of us, but the Europeans have been taking advantage of us. I'm going to place all these tariffs on Europeans as well. And he's also going to pull out of Ukraine, or he wants to pull out of Ukraine. Let's see if that happens or not. But yeah, things are not looking good for the Europeans, especially if Trump comes to power. The Europeans are absolutely panicking if Trump comes back into power, and they're not going to like it at all. So, so yeah, I just think this is a really bad move by the Europeans, guys, and China is going to look at this, and they're going to probably slap some more tariffs against the Europeans. Yeah, so this is going to hurt Europeans really a lot in the long term. China's going to hit back. They're going to place sanctions against the European products like brandy. It's already happening. And the French are complaining because they're saying, oh, we can put sanctions against you, but you cannot put sanctions against us. So again, it shows the Europeans' racist tone when it comes to trade. And I don't know if you remember, Macron came to China a few years ago, and he was walking around with Xi Jinping, and they signed a lot of deals. China bought a lot of Airbus from France and brandy and all these other deals they were buying from France. So he was happy. But France was one of the main people who asked for these sanctions or tariffs to be placed on Chinese EV cars. So it just shows the French, you just can't trust the French. So yeah, I just don't think it's going to be a good move for Europe, guys, and this is going to further push them into recession. Europe is going down. Europe needs China more than China needs Europe. Let's put it that way. I mean, China's opening up new kind of partnerships all over the world. There's 190 countries around the world, and 80-90% of them have China as a number one trading partner. You have the Middle East pivoting towards China. You have Central Asia pivoting towards China. You have obviously Southeast Asia, which is heavily integrated into China. you got Africa integrated to China, South America's integrated into China. You have pretty much most of the world integrated with China, and Europeans are not wanted or needed anymore. The Europeans did the same thing with this trade deal that they were supposed to sign. I don't know if you remember, like 3, 4 years ago, just when Trump was leaving office, and Merkel at the time, she was pushing through towards this deal between China and Europe, which would have like given unlimited access to Europeans into the Chinese market, and it was a really good deal for the Europeans. And then Biden came into power, and he asked Europeans to kind of throw that into the bin. And guess what? They threw in the bin, and nobody's heard about it ever since. And this was about 4 years ago, and you can thank Ursula for that as well. So you see, they love to destroy their own economy for the sake of United States. They did that with the Nord Stream. They did that with all these ridiculous sanctions they've been placing on Russia. It's just absolutely ridiculous, guys. Anyway, it's enough for now, and I'll chat to you in the next video. Take care. Don't forget to like and share. See you soon, guys.